Okay, well, welcome everyone. Thanks for joining, and we're going to talk more about our Safe Routes to School program today. This is a pilot year. I just want to emphasize that from the beginning. Pilot means that we're kind of testing things out. We're going to see how this process goes, and we will encourage feedback from everyone who participates in the program and in the process. Next slide. So I just want to point out that we're not starting from scratch. Kansas has been doing Safe Routes to School since about 2005, and we got our first master plans rolling in about 2007. And so you can see on this map from 2007, 2015, we had quite a few communities participating. And I just want to say to you, like when I say a plan, I'm talking about a master plan just focused on Safe Routes to School. And this is different than a preliminary engineering design set. This is a plan that basically involves the public, the surveys, assesses routes that kids walk and bike on, and essentially becomes a guide that covers more than just the engineering component. It covers education, enforcement, encouragement, evaluation, equity, and Anne is going to go into more detail about that in a few minutes. The blue stars that you see are communities that have completed plans in the last 5 years or so. On the website that we'll discuss later, you can go and click on the stars. They are live, and you can view each one of those master plans to get an idea of what they look like and what they might look like for your community. Oftentimes it's helpful to go to a neighboring community if you see that they have a plan, and kind of see what that looks like. It's maybe more similar to you, maybe similar populations are great places to start. And we will talk a little bit about what it looks like inside the plan as well. Next slide. Okay, so what will this Safe Routes to School program look like, this pilot program? So if you know anything about transportation alternatives, you probably think more about like that. You probably know that it's construction focused. And because applications in the past to develop a Safe Routes to School master plan were mixed in with the construction applications, it tended to get more complicated as a result. So we are trying out this new process that will help streamline getting communities involved in the Safe Routes to School master planning process with our assistance. And basically, we will be helping to skip 3 or 4 steps in that process, and maybe as much as a year and a half, shave that off of what it would normally be if you were to apply through transportation alternatives. Now, I do want to point out that we will still have transportation alternatives opportunities available, and you will still be able to apply for a Safe Routes to School master plan through that. But we are hoping that this program will energize communities. It'll seem more user-friendly, more accessible to participate in. And now I'm going to hand it over to Ann Cat. Ann is our new Safe Routes to School coordinator. We haven't had a Safe Routes to School coordinator for many years, and we're pleased to have her. She's been around for a couple months, so is learning all of this very quickly. Ann, take it over.
Ann, you're muted. How's that? Okay. So thank you, Jenny. For the pilot year, we are focusing on 4 major program areas: PNP grants, non-engineering grants, communications and outreach, resources and training, services, and we'll talk more about each of these a little later. Okay, so planning and programming grants. These non-engineering grants will provide funding awards through the state Safe Routes to School program for planning, programming, and projects to re-energize the Safe Routes to School program. Communication and outreach. We hope to rebuild statewide awareness of Safe Routes to Schools through our new website, which Sarah will drop in the chat for you. And you can register for updates on the Getting Started page. We'll host statewide monthly calls for knowledge sharing opportunities for communities working on Safe Routes to Schools. You can follow us on social media. We hope to rebuild internal KDOT understanding of safe routes to schools with partnerships and collaboration. Safe routes to schools resources and training. We're going to provide online resources and training to support local adoption and implementation of safe routes to school programs and projects through planning toolkits and resources, safety education and curriculum, communication templates, newsletters, flyers, press releases. We'll offer instructor-led training, community workshops, e-learning, and virtual classes, and Safe Routes to School library with downloadable resources. Our services will provide in-person service and assistance with technical assistance by phone and email, planning assistance, and safety education through the grant program and application process. Okay, and here we are. This is the KDOT staff. On the left, Matt Messina, Chief of Multimodal Transportation. Jenny in the middle, Active Transportation Manager, and that's me on the end. I'm the Safe Routes to School Program Coordinator. So our support will come from these two groups. We're supported by Tool Design and Burns and McDonnell. Tool Design is a planning, engineering, and landscape design firm that's been working with Safe Routes to School programs for over 20 years. Tool will act as the primary managers of the program and provide planning and technical assistance statewide. Burns and McDonnell is an architecture and engineering firm based in Kansas City, Missouri, and they'll assist with on-the-ground fieldwork and project design. We want to form an advisory committee of 10 to 15 people from throughout the state with a variety of interests, experience in geography to help advise and guide the Safe Routes to School program through this pilot year. We'll host quarterly meetings of 1 to 2 hours each, and between meetings, we might ask for homework for the committee to review documents and materials. Please watch for the recruitment notice. And if you're interested in learning more, please sign up at our new website or contact me for more information. Okay, so what can you do today? You can check out our new website where you will find information about Safe Routes to Schools and KDOT Safe Routes to Schools programming, Safe Routes to School resources, upcoming news and events, and sign up for e-news and register your school. But remember, the chat is in. Sarah dropped the link in the chat. Okay, so when you sign up on our email list and register your school, you'll receive e-newsletters with information about upcoming and ongoing Safe Routes to Schools efforts, success stories, support resources, knowledge sharing opportunities, webinar information. When you register your school, we'll reach out to you to see how we can best support you. Okay. So the KDOT Safe Routes to School program provides non-engineering funding, technical support, and resources to schools and communities to help plan, develop, and implement projects and activities that increase the number of K-12 students walking, biking, and rolling to school through the PNP program. There are 2 categories of grants available this year: planning and Kickstart grants. And we'll remind you that you don't need an existing Safe Routes to School plan to apply. Everyone is eligible. Okay, so at our Safe Routes to School Summit last week, we talked about the ease of Safe Routes to School: equity, education, engineering, encouragement, evaluation, engagement, and enforcement. While engineering is a vital component of Safe Routes to Schools, the PNP grants we're discussing today are non-engineering grants. Engineering work like design, plan sets, and construction cannot be funded as part of this grant program, but the existing Transportation Alternative Program does fund engineering work, so that's a valuable resource. Again, the link is in the chat. Schools and communities looking to develop comprehensive Safe Routes to School plans are eligible for planning and programming grants. Plans developed with this funding will be completed by Tool Design. Planning grants will fund Safe Routes to School plans, which include an analysis of existing conditions, public outreach, identification of potential infrastructure and non-infrastructure solutions to help more children walk, bike, and roll safely to school. Applicants should be prepared to support plan development by providing additional information, completing an online assessment tool, surveying parents and students, arranging and promoting public workshops, and identifying local issues and solutions. Applicants should be able to demonstrate a commitment to implementing the completed plan. A single plan can support from 1 up to 8 schools within the same district. And if you need assistance with selecting which school in your district, please contact me. For the 2023-24 grant cycle, there will be a maximum of 5 planning grants available. Okay, so to talk about examples of school plans, I'm going to hand this over to Sarah Schooley with Tool Design.
Thanks, Anne. So we wanted to take a little bit of time in this presentation to just introduce what a Safe Routes to School plan is, so that as you're applying for the P&P planning grants, you know what to expect on the other end. And what Anne said a little while ago is also very important, that these plans are not engineering plans. So there won't be plan sets or design drawings, but a Safe Routes to School plan really sets you up in order to go the next step and start your engineering or design. So on this slide here, you can see what would be a pretty typical table of contents for a Safe Routes to School plan. So the first part is about visions and goals. So just kind of setting the scene for what your school wants or what your community wants for Safe Routes to School. The next part is existing conditions. So this is, talking about what's happening and what everything looks like right then. So you look at walking and biking and rolling crash rates, community needs, and then any current walking, biking, and rolling infrastructure or programs, such as crossing guards or walking school buses, or bike training in the school. The third part of the plan is a programmatic and policy recommendation. So this is where you go back to those E's that Anne talked about earlier and start to identify policies and programs that help your school or your community meet these E's of Safe Routes to School. The next part, the fourth part, is project recommendations. And so this is where you're really setting yourself up for the engineering work that would come next. So you would have your map of the school and identify locations, general types of projects, and also prioritize those projects so that when hopefully money falls from the sky, you are all set up and you know which projects to do first. And then the last part of a Safe Routes to School plan is usually an infrastructure toolbox. And the infrastructure toolbox describes typical types of infrastructure that happen in Safe Routes to School. So thinking of high visibility crossings or curb extensions, and offers guidance on how to consistently use them, why you would use them, and how to implement them. So we're going to go through some different parts of what a Safe Routes to School plan would look like, just so you all get a better sense. Next slide. So this is an example of what a page in the existing conditions portion of the plan would look like. So as you can see, it's a map, the school's right at the center, and it gives you all sorts of information that you would want to know to determine what the current situation is like for kids and families trying to walk and roll to school. And so you have the student density with the student address heat map. You have your half-mile buffer. This could also show a mile buffer to give a sense of how far kids and their families would reasonably walk or bike. You have the school boundary, so you know where kids are coming from. And then you have the crash rate, so either bike crashes or pedestrian crashes that have been reported. So you can see where those happen. And then you look at other parts of kind of the existing roadway infrastructure. So you would look at if there are any shared use paths or sidewalks or bikeways, but also looking at where high traffic and high speed streets are around the school. Because as you might guess, those streets aren't very welcoming for students and their families and not the safest places to walk. So those are really important to identify when you're then thinking about projects down the line. Next slide. Here's an example of what a program and policy recommendation would look like. So you have a general policy. So there at the top, strategy 3, build an inclusive education campaign to encourage walking and biking to school. And then once you have this big program or policy that you're looking into, you start identifying actions. And actions are really the things that are going to make this program and policy happen. So we try to break down that program and policy into actions to make them a little bit more bite-sized and to help the community and the school see progress towards that policy or program. Next slide. Here's an example of what a project recommendation page would look like from the plan. So as you can see, we have the school here, and then those little dots from 1 to 10 show where projects are recommended. Another thing you'll notice, if you can see the tiny print in the legend here, is that those numbers don't necessarily correspond to super unique infrastructure, but instead they more identify the general, 10,000 foot level of infrastructure. So for example, their mid-block recommendation or school zone signage recommendation. And this is where that line goes from planning to engineering. And so this is the sort of document that you would start with before you get into engineering, so you know where the projects should happen and in general, what types of projects should happen. And then this leads into actually the next slide and the last part of a Safe Routes to School plan. Go to the next slide, please, Anne, where we talk about the infrastructure toolbox. And the infrastructure toolbox gives an overview on various types of projects that would most likely happen in the Safe Routes to School world. So the ones here on the slide are right turn redesign or curb extensions, but they could also include pedestrian islands or bike lanes or path connections. And for each of these things, we offer information on why you would put it in, where you should put them in, how much does it cost, and how long does it take, in addition to some other references and resources, with the idea that when you have the project recommendation locations and the infrastructure toolbox, you are all set up to move forward on designing and putting that project on the ground. So we just wanted to go through these quickly so that you had an idea of what the plan would look like, and figure out whether this is the right fit for your community before you start going for the planning grants. So with that, I'll turn it back over to Anne.
Gosh, I have to figure out that unmute. Thank you, Sarah. Okay, thank you, Sarah. Excellent information. So we encourage you to visit our Safe Routes to School site because we have a map, like Jenny described earlier, and also links so that you can select current plans for information. Okay, so Kickstart grants are intended to help initiate Safe Routes to School programs, events, and environments. Funds are intended to help kickstart Safe Routes to Schools with an initiative that will lead to the development of a Safe Routes to School program. For the 2023-24 grant cycle, $15,000 is available for Kickstart grants. Individual grants have a maximum amount of $1,500 each. So at our website is a pilot planning and programming grants overview PDF, and it's under the resources tab. On page 2, it lists information about Kickstart grants and other resources for non-infrastructure activities. Some of the examples include the development and delivery of Safe Routes to School related programs, public awareness campaigns, planning and developing events, materials that promote safe walking, biking, and rolling to school, pop-up events and demonstration projects that test out future walking, biking, and rolling infrastructure, creation and reproduction of promotional and educational materials, bike and pedestrian safety curriculum materials and trainers, Safe Routes to School training, startup costs for additional enforcement equipment needed for enforcement activity around schools, equipment and training for crossing guard programs, small incentives for Safe Routes to School contests or to encourage or reward more biking, walking, and rolling to school, safety and educational tokens like helmets or reflective items, and printing and mailing costs. The handout also lists ineligible activities, which may be funded through KDOT's Transportation Alternatives Program. Again, the link in the chat. So the application is an online form that's user-friendly and quick. You can find the application at our website under the News and Events tab. There are a few categories that are important to think about before you begin. So Who is your project team? Confirm that this project has school district approval. Who do you involve? Who to involve local champions, teachers, principals, district transportation staff, city and municipal staff, elected officials like city commissioners, public health department, parents, or students. And you might gather some letters of support from your community. Remember, the application deadline is November 17th, 2023 at 5 p.m. and KDOT staff is here to help. So we'll have a question and answer section at our website with common questions and answers for you to access. And this recorded webinar will be available at our website. So when you think through your project, think of your project name. So when you go and check other Kansas plans and programs at our site that we talked about earlier, one of the plans is called Be Active Safe Routes Plan. So that's, I think, a neat way to energize your project. Think about, is it a planning or kickstart grant? Is this a new Safe Routes to School program for your school? Or is there an existing plan? What is your project timeline? What is your project description? This is a great time to refer to the E's. How will the project build Safe Routes to School's momentum in your community? And for Kickstart grants only, what is your project budget? Okay, we encourage you to know your school. What is your school enrollment? What schools are part of this application? How many students live within 2 miles of the school? Is this school a Title I school? What is the free and reduced school meal eligibility number? What is the approximate percentage of mode split? Which means how are students traveling to school right now? You might check Safe Routes to School history or current efforts like walking school buses or crossing guard programs. When you build your team, check with the principal or school district staff for support. Think about other supporters in the community. And as we said, letters of support from the community begin to build support. So reminder that the application deadline is close of business or 5 p.m. on November 17th, 2023. Here is our new webpage, and for you to access, we encourage you to do that. So we are super excited to kick off this next phase of Safe Routes to School work in Kansas, creating places where K-12 students and their families can walk, bike, and roll safely, comfortably, and enjoyably to school. And we invite you to join us. Okay, we're going to start the question and answer now. Sarah will read any questions or comments in the chat. Feel free to add questions or comments to the chat or unmute yourself to share.